George has been performing over seasons at Williams. A couple of races to get used to it. Now he's delivering. When you look at the way, for example, Lando operates the power unit throughout the race, it's incredibly impressive. It's really exceptional at maximising the energy recovery, the energy delivery. Lewis has had a championship winning car for many years, and it's just a different mentality. Whereas George is just a bit younger, flat out all the time, and certainly teams like Mercedes that are used to having very complex very complex hydraulic suspension, which put the car in exactly the right place, are struggling more because they're not able to use those suspension elements. They've generated a car with a floor which operates in a very small window because they anticipate.
You made me realize now. So, Alex Brundle, like so till time, so many questions to ask, but we'll start from like this point. This time you're racing for the Polish Inter Europol team. How did you get the drive?
Well, originally Sasha Fassbender, the boss, the team principal here at Inter Europol, was in contact with me after driving for around 10 years in this category. He wanted to build a team to challenge here at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Initially he'd already signed Renger van der Zande in the first year of the WEC project with the Orica, and he wanted another experienced driver, and here I am after stints with various teams around the endurance paddock. And it was simple as that. The team contacted me, said, would you like to come and drive for us in the World Endurance Championship? I accepted, and now this is my second year racing for Inter Europol.
What do you make of a new era in Formula One? You like it?
Yeah, I think I do. I think it's the right movement in terms of the way the cars have to go. Less downforce generated above the floor, more ground effect was always clearly the way which was going to allow the cars to overtake.
Except for the...
It's clearly surprised the teams in the way that they're now not able to control the platform of the car quite so aggressively or quite so exactly. And certainly teams like Mercedes that are used to having very complex very complex hydraulic suspension, which put the car in exactly the right place, are struggling more because they're not able to use those suspension elements. They've generated a car with a floor which operates in a very small window because they anticipate.
You made me realize now, why do they have problems with suspension as well? Sorry, because I was just wondering, and then it's hydraulics.
They anticipate that they'll be able to control the car in that window, and then of course with the less tools they're not able to. But I don't think it'll be long before the Formula One teams get their head around it, and if you want to see some bouncing, they can try a sports car anytime.
Okay, so now Charles Leclerc or Max Verstappen?
I always say I dislike them all equally because they're in Formula One and I'm not. So I mean, in what way? Who do I think is going to win the championship? I think that Max Verstappen, as the series wears on, will have a better and better car. The pace of the development of the Red Bull is always strong, but you can never discount Charles. If you forced me, I would predict Max Verstappen would win the championship this year.
Okay. Any surprises with George Russell being higher in the standings than Lewis Hamilton?
George has been performing over seasons at Williams. It's not surprising that he's high performing in a Mercedes as well. Took him a couple of races to get used to it. Now he's delivering. No. I mean, Formula One, every year the slate is clean, and but Lewis is also a very wily customer. You know, he knows how to develop the car, and I think when they get the car in the right place for him, you look at the potential of that Mercedes, and it's there. When the moment comes for Lewis to fight back, I'm pretty sure he'll be able to do so.
Okay, so but still, I think that seeing George being like 34 points now in front after 7 races, it's not only pure by accident or by pure luck, is it?
Yeah, well, no, it's the results of the races. But yeah, that's the way they finish. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think over time, George Russell has had to deal with a lot of different racing cars, and maybe had to scrap a little bit more with a car which is not optimally in the window. Lewis has had a championship winning car for many years, and it's just a different mentality from an older driver, maybe to take the view a bit more that the car needs to be right, and you need to come in and continue to work on the car, not push a car which is not operating in the window which it needs to be operating in, whereas George is just a bit younger, flat out all the time. Yeah. Whether that development, will come for Lewis and he'll feel happy in the car to push and try and win races, we remain to see.
Okay. Wider perspective, because of your family, you know Formula One since very little. Did you get?
Yeah, definitely. But Formula One is ever changing. You can't.
That was my question.
I don't think you can really know Formula One unless you continue studying it. In my humble opinion, I've not been a Formula One driver.
But you've known some, huh?
I've been a race car driver for many years, and this new era of Formula One, even though the power units are the same, requires another school of study to understand how to maximize cars. And everybody has to learn again how these cars operate and how to predict their performance and how to understand what's playing out on track.
Like, I've read very interesting opinion from Damon Hill about what the young drivers have doing better than the older ones. It was in the context of Ricciardo and Lando Norris, and he said that maybe it's that because they play games a lot, and that maybe they just get this special feel without spinning the car, but just by pure reflexes, and maybe that's the advantage of Max Verstappen and George Russell and so on.
Yeah, when you look at the way, for example, Lando operates the power unit throughout the race, it's incredibly impressive. You can see it playing out, and also being at F1 HQ, I can also see a lot of the data that comes out of the cars. And Lando is really exceptional, along with his engineers, of course, is really exceptional at maximizing the energy recovery, the energy delivery, to put himself in the position, for example, to overtake or defend from being overtaken. And I think that is something that definitely comes from having that, PlayStation generation mindset of operating those electronic elements of the car to maximize its performance, perhaps over an older head like a Fernando Alonso or a Sebastian Vettel, who want to get the mechanical side of the car right and then just drive it to try to take the performance.
So how many Formula One drivers, apart from your father, you got to know well?
I mean, I couldn't put a count on it, but I've had the pleasure of meeting some of the greatest drivers, and that's the joy for me. It's really a privilege to get to meet some of the heroes. Guys like Mika Häkkinen, and you get to spend a few minutes with them. Damon Hill, you get to spend a few minutes with them. Even Michael Schumacher, and you remember every single moment that you get to spend, and you try to learn as much as you possibly can from those drivers.
And your favorite guys, like personality-wise?
I don't know. I don't have really favorite guys right now. I think it's great to talk to the older generation of drivers. The bravery that they show. When really every time you took your life in your hands, every time you stood, you still do, but it was even more acute back then. And there's a certain chivalry they have that's very impressive, that's very honourable, it's very brave. They're brave inside, and you can see it. And those guys I like to spend time with if I get the opportunity.
Okay, and then the last questions, like father questions, which is pretty obvious. Because I was watching Formula One since 1992, so I remember Martin Brundle racing with Mark Brundle in the same team. It was not only leisure, I think.
I can't remember. It was definitely Ligier where they were together.
Yeah, that's for sure. But maybe some other thing. But do you have like any memories of your father racing in Formula One?
I would have been 2 at that point.
Two, three, yeah.
I do remember the final stages of his Formula One career. You know, in the sort of mid-90s. But it's very blurry for me, which is why I wonder if that's why I ended up in a sports car, honestly, because his sports car racing with Toyota, with Bentley, I really remember. I was a little bit older, and I was in the position to not only attend but also understand a little bit of what's going on. So I attended the testing of the Toyota GT1 and then the race here. And that's why sports car racing is really in my blood. F1, I think I was a little young for that, you know, and so I certainly was there. I remember being there, but I was a very young guy at that time.
Just like being honest, because I've been around, you know, for some time, and I just, you know, there are some guys that I really like and really respect from British media, like Mark Hughes, for example. But most of these guys are really very much biased. I don't know if you see it, but they're very much biased towards British racing, Lewis Hamilton and so on. But there's one, to me the best one, who is like almost always in the middle, and this is your father. Really, one of my favorites. So are you proud of your father as a Formula One and racing pundit?
I'm proud of my father, whatever he does. Yeah, he's built an incredible career out of initially racing and then indeed commentary over many years. He's a great dad as well, and you know, it's a tough job. It's a much harder job than people, I believe, and he would be too humble to say so. I believe it's a harder job than people give it credit for. People arrive to the broadcast with different levels of knowledge, different perceptions, their own different biases. And so to carve an honest path and say what you think is always tricky when you know that whatever you say you're really going to annoy somebody, because eventually nobody wants to stand in front of the camera and just float on the fence the whole time. The audience, from those who are knowledgeable, those who've been involved with Formula One, and those who study it closely, want arrival at a conclusion, want arrival at an opinion, and that's always going to annoy a certain percentage of the audience. So I do believe he makes the decision to always go straight ahead with the path that he feels is as close to the truth as the data will give him, as the people will tell him, as the information will show him, and I'm proud of him for that and everything he does, of course.
And how is it this year?
It's good so far. I think the first year we gained a lot of results from reliability, not by being particularly quick, not by being particularly aggressive with the strategy or aggressive with the driving, but by being just very solid. Now we try to take a step forward with regards to our performance level, with regards to our edge of performance, and with that always comes some failures. You know, there's no gain without a little pain, and I think we're feeling the pain at the start of this year, but there's a lot of potential in the car and in the team.
So it seems like a bit more maybe long-term project for you, just to settle with the team and develop it? Is it? Yeah,
well, I'm signed now for 2 years to try to bring this team to the podium of this race, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And it is a long-term project. To be successful in this class, in this category of car, is a long-term project. You have to get it absolutely right, and it's incredibly competitive. This is one of the most competitive motorsport formulas in the world. It doesn't happen overnight, and so we need to keep on developing and keep on working.
I think motorsports was in your life forever. Your first memories for the racing circuit, what would it be?
Certainly here, actually, following my dad around when he drove the Toyota GT1 here. And also a little bit of Formula One when I was very young. But yeah, I've grown up, certainly, as you say, in motorsport I know what it is to be at the racetrack and to try to deliver the best performance. And yeah, it's a massive part of my life.
Like started racing around 8, if I seen properly. So you always knew since 8 or maybe before that you want to be a race driver?
It seemed like the obvious path, but then I think I grew to love it later. I took the line of least resistance as a young man, and then when I arrived at an older age, I found that I love motorsport. You know, and I think if you have the opportunity to come and do these incredible things, why would you not take it? And that's the path that I've followed ever since. But initially, I went into motorsport because it seemed like the obvious direction, and then I grew to really want to continue to perform in racing as I grew older.
And you've had like a proper way in the motorsports, doing like junior series. You did GP3, you did Formula 2, like the previous Formula 2, then you did like Formula 3 as well, so all the major series. So at which point you have decided to go endurance?
I think that realistically, when I understood that to get to Formula 1 would require finance, which was just purely not available, I had an option to test a car here at Le Mans. My first ever run in an LMP car was here. And the test went well. I was quick in the car, and I understood the car, good with the team, and it just went from there. Again, it's the direction life took me. I knew that I wouldn't have more options, more opportunities in a single-seater, purely because you need to keep on pumping money in, and the money just wasn't available. And so, yeah, endurance seemed like the obvious option, and then here I am 10 years later, still at the wheel of an LMP2 car.
So how many Le Mans did you do already?
9 times. This will be my
like
ninth.
a veteran almost.
This will be, I'm 31, this will be my 9th 24 hours of Le Mans. And yeah, I've done some laps here.
And what's so special about this race?
The scale of it is the main thing. It's like a normal race, just everything's bigger. Everything's huge. You know, the time scales, the circuit, the event, the venue, the crowd, just everything is bigger here. That alongside going so fast for so long. You know, we all, when we're young, kind of maybe dream of taking a road car out on the public roads and just having no speed limits and going flat out, obviously in a safe way. And I think that's Le Mans allows you to fulfill that. It really feels like that. It feels like just going out on the road and driving a very high performance car flat out from A to B, which is there's a certain joy in that for petrol heads like me, and I think that's what's different about Le Mans. It doesn't feel as sterile as driving on a prepared racetrack does. It's a very real experience, even reduced in the way it is now for safety reasons.
Talking of driving in the cars, I think that LMP2 is kind of underestimated kind of a car in the racing society, not only amongst the fans, but also I think in like an overall environment. But do I get it right that it's like a really very good racing car, not only for endurance, but like basically
the current Oreca 07 is one of the best racing cars ever produced. It's an incredible race car. In the current format, against the hypercars, if they allowed us to run whatever we wanted, we would win the race by laps, absolute laps. We would destroy the current Toyota hypercar. The car as it is pinned back heavily. It's a tremendous car, it's a great car to drive. Unfortunately, because of the stratification of the classes where we sit, they reduce the performance of the car considerably, but it's still a great racing car for here.
I mean, it really shows that like a proper racing car probably is not necessarily a hybrid and turbo. It might be just a normally aspirated light car.
Well,
that's good for racing.
I mean, it's a question of communication with regards to the manufacturers that want to market here and want to show what they can do here. Le Mans has to communicate. You know, it has to communicate something. Otherwise, OEM manufacturers wouldn't want to run their cars here. And at the moment, the way the world's going, it has to communicate hybrid, it has to communicate battery technology, it has to communicate regeneration of energy, and so that's what those manufacturers need. The reality of those cars is they're a little bit heavy, they're still in their development phase, and yes, the fastest way round is in a V8 with a lot of downforce and a lot of aerodynamic efficiency. But we know that, you know, we can produce a car so fast. In 2022, we can produce a car so fast nobody can drive it. It's not the game anymore. The game is to set a set of parameters that will help us to develop cars for the road, and then make racing cars that operate as moving laboratories for those concepts, and that's what those manufacturers are doing here. As such, it means that us, racing in the second class, racing for the joy of racing really, that's what privateers do, have to sit in our place in the race.
And talking about LMP2, what are the strongest teams around here, in WEC in general, not necessarily only Le Mans?
I think WRT, I think Jota, I think Prema have been very strong as the new teams this year, but certainly I think looking at the performance through the week, this week, WRT in the way that they've run multiple cars have really shown the way this year in endurance racing.
And talking of Prema, of course, he's Robert Kubicy, Polish hero when it comes to motorsports. I'm a Polish journalist, so I just would like to ask you, what do you make of Robert?
I don't know, honestly. I mean, I would have to share the car with him directly. Clearly, no mistakes so far, and we'll find out in the race. He's got quite a lot of experience now, operating within endurance racing. So yeah, clearly, always a strong competitor, and yeah, look forward to racing him.
And your teammates, you're racing with Estebanie Gutierrezie amongst them?
Yeah, Estebanie Gutierrezie, a mega guy. Absolutely mega guy. Really calm, tremendous experience, great mentality he brings to racing, and very fast when he needs to be. And Kuba is so passionate. I mean, down to earth as well. He's there in the mornings helping the team. He's there whenever the team need him to, even hands-on with the car, which is really impressive for a guy in his situation as partly a driver, partly a part of the management of the team. So two drivers I really enjoy sharing with.
And looking at social media, you are maybe trying to make your way being a pundit in racing. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm not really trying to make my way specifically. I'm asked to hang out and talk about some Formula 2 racing, which is nice. I enjoy it. It's not lucrative, trust me.
Yet?
Well, I don't know, but I love to be around racing. I love to be around racing, and I like to spend time understanding the teams, understanding the drivers, and it gives me another perspective as well. Like from a media perspective, I get to see how drivers come across when you look at it from the outside. It's a very different thing, and try to meld those two worlds together. But mostly, I just enjoy it, and to see, and it really helps me as well with selection of teammates, management of cars, opportunity and potential to see the next generation coming through, who might be able to make it through to Formula 1, and also who might arrive with us in endurance racing, and track the careers of my peers, of my group.
Going back to yourself, like maybe long-term future, where do you see yourself? What would satisfy you? Like on a sports-wise and maybe like a career-wise?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I always think that motorsport is a career of opportunity. So you take your opportunities stage by stage. Maybe I'll get the opportunity to drive another sequence of P2 cars. Maybe I'll get the opportunity to drive a works car, in which I'll go in that direction. Maybe not, and I'll be asked to do a little more TV. I've really got no idea, but what I do know is I don't spend a lot of time sitting on my hands. I spend a lot of time trying my absolute best to do all of my projects the maximum justice and do my homework to try to push forward on all fronts And I truly believe that if you just give your best in everything that you do, your path will almost be chosen for you in this game by the ebbs and flows, the tides, the wind of motorsport. I'm happy to be at a racetrack. If I get to drive the car, it's even better. If I get to talk about the cars, still great. And that's the future I see. I'm very content with whatever motorsport spits out.
Okay, it's really great pleasure talking to you.
Cool.
Thank you and good luck for the Le Mans.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.